See you. I am delighted today that I have got a special guest, Jason Fox, aka Foxy from SAS Who Dares Wins. I was just telling Jason that my son, who's very unimpressed by all of my work, was most excited I've ever seen him when I said I was going to talk to you. So welcome today, Jason. Lovely to see you. Lovely to have you here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it.
So you have a new book out, don't you? So we're going to be talking to you about resilience today. And your book is called Life Under Fire, How to Build Inner Strength and Thrive Under Pressure. And if ever there was a time that we needed a book like this, it's now. So let's talk a little bit about resilience. I mean, you've went into the Special Forces. Well, no, you were a Marine at 16 and then you went into the SAS later. So I think you probably know everything there is to know about being resilient. But where do we start about building our own resilience and our own inner strength? So if we're feeling really wobbly, second lockdown perhaps coming on, how do we start saying, okay, I need to build myself up now? Where do we start?
I think it's difficult to know where to generalize a start point because everyone's different and individual. But I think a lot of it is we can sort of generalize it. And I think a lot of it comes from to build inner strength, you have to look inside. You've got to look internally, and you need to start acknowledging certain things that are going on within you. You know, mainly emotionally. So you need to become slightly more emotionally aware. And it's not. I don't think it takes too much practice. It's more about your sort of approach mentally towards how you feel. So if you feel a certain way, instead of ignoring it and trying to push it to one side, you're better off sitting down and actually exploring that emotion and giving it a little bit of respect, and then sort of like working. Once you've explored it and you realize what it is, you'll probably then work out why you're feeling that way, which means you're better equipped to counter the negative side of that emotion. And so I think a lot of, yes, we've had a tough year. Everyone has, some more than others. And it's a lot of it is the fear of the unknown, I think, as well, and the fear of going back into a situation that we don't necessarily like because we've already experienced it. But if you can understand that you're not in it alone, so that comes down to a lot of communicating with people, talking to them, sharing your problem. They'll share theirs. Those problems are hard. They don't feel as bad because you've lightened the load. And then realize that the tough times don't last forever. Nothing does, and that's the beauty of it. It makes the good times shine brighter. So yes, we're going into sort of uncharted territory or sort of semi-known territory, to be honest, and that we'll come out the other side of it. And we're humans. We learn how to survive. We learn how to adapt, and that's what we're going to do. You just times are tough. You've got to find a positive in something. You've got to be emotionally aware, and you sometimes have to, there is a little bit of grit required as well to get through them. And you should take pride in the fact that you can find that within yourself. That is something to be proud of when you do find it and tap into it.
Yeah, I say that we're always much stronger than we think we are. You talk about grit. So how do we find that within us, as you say, because when the chips are down and it's probably in the SAS you've been in these really, really stressful situations and you think, oh my God, I'm gonna die, or I can't even imagine what it's like. So what are the methods that you use to kind of bring yourself back to center and power on through?
Well, I'll answer it in two parts. So basically, the first part, when I was doing this book, actually, I was like, how did I get through the times that I've experienced and been involved in, and also including my, my mental health, I'd say, breakdown. I'd look back and how was I taught resilience or inner strength? And I think a lot for me happened when I was 16, when I joined the Marines. And they're a very good organization, and I was like looking at how they install resilience into young men or young people now, and it's down to their culture, and they breed it from an early age. So they teach you the 4 pillars of the Commando spirit, is what it's known as. But those 4 pillars are pillars are courage, determination, unselfishness, and cheerfulness in the face of adversity. So basically, the courage one is about having the courage to step out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself. The determination is basically having the discipline to find the grit inside you to go through those tough times, to then make an uncomfortable situation comfortable because you've developed and learned about yourself. Unselfishness is to always look out for other people around you first before you, which sounds odd at first, but if you think about it, if everyone else is doing that for you, then and you're doing it for them, you've got each other's backs, and it just breeds a nice environment to be in, a trustworthy environment. And then ultimately the cheerfulness in the face of adversity is about finding the positive in what could potentially be dark times, and because it's the positive outlook that will get you through them, and it will help you find a way out of those tough times, those tough situations. So I think that was ingrained into me from a very early age, and it taught me a lot about my approach to challenging situations, and I chose to put myself into those challenging situations. But then ultimately going forward, when you're in the special forces especially, you have to be I had to be very emotionally aware, which meant acknowledging my emotions when they came in. So I can remember many times when I felt really fearful, and I could feel that manifested inside me. It feels weird and it can feel horrible, but instead of like curling up into a ball, I would use that emotion in a positive way. So it's up to you. It's your emotion. You can do with it what you wish. You can either make it a negative one or a positive one. And for me, the positive way was to channel that emotion and make it switch me on. So I'd become more focused on the job at hand and what I needed to do to then get myself out of it.
Yeah. So it makes it so, again, I've talked, obviously as editor of Psychologist, I talk to a lot of therapists, and they talk about using our emotions as friends. So even if it's a negative emotion, that friend is trying to tell you something. It's a straight talking friend that might say, honey, you need to change this and this. So what I'm hearing you say is that when you kind of fearful, it's okay. Fear is your kind of action point to focus. You need to focus now because you've got to get out of this. And
exactly.
What a great technique. I feel fearful, but okay, focus on what do you focus on? Focus on the way out, focus on the solution, focus on.
A lot of it is a solution, or a lot of it is, it's not necessarily a foolproof solution, because you might be in a situation that is ever changing, but it's about, as a professional soldier, you do a lot of training, you get taught an awful lot, and you've got that bank of knowledge within you, and you're taught certain skill sets, you're taught a certain way to operate. And I think for me, in the situation that I'm thinking about now, it was about switching on and just focusing on what I needed to do, how I needed to move across certain ground, what equipment I needed to employ, what I needed to do to make sure that I could do whatever it is I needed to do. But that's the same for anything else, whether it's being a soldier or working from home and you've got a task to complete online, okay, I'm feeling a little bit anxious about something, but I know what I'm doing. I've got a job. I've had this job for a while. I just need to focus a little bit, slow the situation down in my head. And if I can do it in the middle of a gunfight that runs at 1,000,000 miles an hour, I reckon you can probably do it in most situations where you just, even if you're conversing with someone and you're not happy with the way maybe a meeting's going, you can check it. You can be like, right, hang on a minute. I just need to get a grip of where we are on this. Slow it down. Be a little bit more methodical in your approach to whatever it is. And then once you've thought about it a little bit more and you've breathed, you're probably in a better place to then, crack on and sort of attack the situation. And I think, being emotionally aware allows you to do that. It allows you to check what's going on, take a few deep breaths, and be a bit more calculated in what you in your maneuvers going forward.
Yeah. When you're talking, you wrote in your book, Battle Scars, about your own trauma and PTSD and your own mental health struggles. So there is the everyday anxiety that you might feel in life, and then there's trauma, isn't there? When you've suffered a real blow to your emotional self, and you found your way back from that. If someone's listening to this interview and have maybe not in a battle situation, but in life has suffered a trauma, what advice would you give them? You've been there, you've been to the darkness. and you found your way back out again. What advice would you give to anyone listening to this who is struggling with a similar kind of trauma?
I think the key to trauma, or to feeling in you putting it, or you feel different to what you prefer to feel like. Yeah. So for me, I didn't talk about it at an early stage because I was embarrassed about it, and I was worried about career, and I was worried about an awful lot of other things. But because of that, I was lying to myself about where my head was at. And so in turn, I wasn't talking about it. It was compounding. It was, over exaggerating what was going on. And then, my advice, the minute you start feeling a mood change, I felt it wasn't that I was having flashbacks or anything with PTSD. My attitude to the job changed, and I wasn't excited by it. And I was having to dig deep for motivation and drive. And it took me a long time to realize that. But if I'd have stopped, thought about it at an early stage, I'd have realized what was going on. And then it's about talking to someone, going on a journey of finding the right person to talk to. It might not happen straight away, but that's the way life is. Sometimes you've got to search around a little bit, but ultimately talking about what's going on, finding the right person to help you work out what you need to do to be reinvigorated by life. And I think that's the most important thing. We said it before. It's communication. The communication in the military is key to everything. Without communication, you're in stuck. But it's the same with anything in life. You need to communicate. It might be that the first person you can communicate with, it might not work out, but you're on a journey of finding that right person. It should be exciting. So try and spin the situation you're in slightly positively and look at it as a journey, and then go and talk. My advice, there's no dark art to it as far as I'm concerned. It's go and talk, and you need to go and find someone that you trust or that you connect with, and share your experiences with them, so they can come in from a different angle and help you find the right path for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think at Psychologies, we're such a massive fan of therapy and for reaching out. But I've got primarily a female audience for Psychologies. So what I see is with my son and my partner, they were so impressed that I was excited that I was going to talk to you. But of course, and they're not so great about talking about their emotions. And I can see them struggling with, how to do it. Are there any tips that you could give to us about, when we're trying to get the men in our lives to open up or to reach out? You can see that they're struggling. You can see that they don't want to talk about it. You can see that they're closing down. You can see that they're, that the joy has gone out of their life, and you want them to reach out. How do we? I mean, it's you saying what you're saying, which will have more effect than probably we will have. Maybe we could just show them this video. But so what could we do to get our men folk more support, or to help them?
I think sometimes it's difficult with blokes. Blokes are pretty rubbish with the direct approach. Well, we obviously need something to talk about, and you'd be like, oh, shut up. I think, and we spoke about it earlier, it's a slightly more considered, subtle approach would probably work a little bit better. Instead of saying that we need to talk about something, I think you mentioned it a minute ago, it's about let's go for a walk, or go for a coffee, or maybe there's another stimulus that try and do something that they like doing, which will in turn, if you're going to talk anyway, that's what people do. And then eventually, if you keep chipping away, it's not a quick fix sometimes either. It requires a bit of determination, a bit of perseverance. But ultimately, if you keep chipping away and, being non-aggressive is the wrong word, but being less obviously persistent.
Yeah, non-direct sometimes, I think.
Yeah, I was trying.
Yeah. Well, with my son, I think that's definitely the way it's worked, where if I try and talk to him about, are you worried about? No, I'm fine, go away. But if I say, you come for a walk with me, it'll start kind of leaking out. And that was really, thanks, Mom, and then he'll go off. But it was just, he's expressed himself a little bit, so it's helped.
Exactly. It's just finding the safe place where they don't feel that they're being interrogated. For some young lads, it might be asked to play some game on PlayStation with them. I don't know. But there's a common ground where to do something that people enjoy gets people talking. It just requires a little bit of, it's like a stealthy approach to getting someone to open up. And with men, I think it definitely needs that subtle approach as opposed to the direct approach sometimes.
Yeah. Or they could just buy your book, which is Life Under Fire, How to Build Inner Strength and Thrive Under Pressure. I think I'm going to buy that for my son because I think he'll love that. But so before you go, our time is up. But one last tip, one last thing, or one piece of wisdom that you could give to us from the book that we'll learn, or one thing that we've got. Lots of people will be watching this video and, they may be struggling with lockdown. And if there's one thing that we haven't already said that you could communicate to them around, I mean, for me, it's like you said, we'll get to the other side of this, which is, it's true, we will. And it's just, and, your words about just find your grit, that'll stay with me. But anything that you'd like to add before you go?
I think we've covered quite a few points that come up in the book, but I think the main one is just to be honest with yourself. Again, we go back to that emotional awareness. If you wake up on a morning and you're not feeling 100% emotionally, take the time before you start the day to work out what it is that's making you feel down. Because if you try to push it to one side, you'll go through the rest of the day really unhappy, and you'll probably impact a lot of other people in a negative way because of the atmosphere around you. And if you did that, took like 10 minutes or whatever it was to just explore what was going on, you'd probably fix it before you even left the house or before you even cracked on with whatever it is that you need to do. And you'd be in a much better headspace. Too many times do I see people just pushing emotion to one side to just try and crack on, but it does no one any favors. So I think just be honest with yourself, give yourself the respect you deserve, and acknowledge a few emotions when they come into the forefront of your mind, really.
Just one more question about that. How do you do it? Do you I mean, for me, I journal a lot, so I kind of think, I'm feeling really rubbish, and I'll write a little bit about it, and then it'll help me. It's because of I feel this and I feel that, and that helps me. How do you do it? Do you do it just mentally, or do you write it down? Or
I just do it mentally. I might chat, maybe, be like, oh God, I've just suddenly realized that I got this bill to pay, or whatever it is. And sometimes that takes a bit of grit and determination. Like, I've got to sit down at the laptop and do it. But ultimately, because I'd woken up in a bit of whether I was anxious, moody, it doesn't matter. I've looked at it, worked out what it was, and then dealt with it quickly, and then it sets you up better for the rest of the day. I still have to remind myself to do it. There'll be times when my missus will be like, well, you're being a bit miserable, you need to sort yourself out. I'm like, oh yeah, do you actually? So it's just, it's all a work in progress, but ultimately some people need to write it down, fine. If people are like me, you can do it, and I just do it in my head because I just work it out there.
But that whole idea of sort of really naming what it is your bill to pay, or you're really dreading something, or that's worry. It's naming it, saying it out loud, or writing it down, or whatever, getting it out, talking about it, and then taking action to sort of, and sometimes things can't be solved, but you can sort of take actions towards feeling more positive, or looking after yourself that day, that kind of thing. It's great.
Exactly.
Jason, thank you so much for your time today. That was really inspiring, and keep up the good work, and keep talking about all of this stuff, because my menfolk in my house, they definitely, they inspired by you, and they listen to you where they don't listen to a word I say. So good time today. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks for having me on.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye.